Welcome to the Grow and Learn podcast, your go-to source for expertise and insights on a variety of topics: business growth, leadership, technology, personal and business finance, and more. We've curated a vast network of business experts ready to address your company's most pressing challenges. From corporate growth strategy to leadership, marketing strategy, sales strategy, branding, customer relations, technology, AI, IT security, and beyond, we connect you to the best experts for your needs. Reach out to us for more information or schedule a call at growandlearn.org to explore how we can support you. We're continuing the train of thought on entrepreneurs, how to make them successful. And my guest today is Kyle Mealy, speaking about revenue growth for small businesses. He's based in Wisconsin. Is that correct, Kyle? Welcome.
Well, thank you, Zarina. I'm really glad to be here and glad to share some of the things we do and how we think about growing businesses.
Fantastic. Tell us a bit about you. Who are you? How did you start? How did you enter this line of business yourself?
Yeah, I have a funny story. So I'm based in Wisconsin, and I've kind of gone through multiple different small businesses, but each one of them gave me a separate skill that kind of culminated to what I'm doing now. So I'll jump to the end and then come back so you can see how it all works together.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do is it's fractional chief revenue officer for small businesses. Now, traditionally, chief revenue officer is more associated with enterprise businesses or very startup businesses, talking about go-to-market strategy and sales operations. That's not me. I saw this beautiful space where there was not a lot of strong leadership that brings together marketing and sales in a thoughtful way for small businesses. Most of the small businesses I work with and my team works with under 10 million don't have budget for a, $200,000 a year full-time marketing exec and a $200,000 a year sales exec. So they try and put them together, and it's usually ends up you get one or the other and not a really strong part of marketing or not a really strong part of sales. So that's what I do, is I kind of build this integrated revenue process for small businesses. And, my journey starts with really falling in love with process. When I came out of college, I ran a lab. I know that seems like a very big turn from where we ended up, but I found beauty in systems and processes there. And I fell in love with data and analytics and predictability and, systemizing thought and hypothesis and iteration. I won Lab of the Year there, and that was the highest honor I could achieve. I was about 23 years old, and my boss came to me and said, "Kyle, you can take my job in 10 years." And I died. I was like, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to sit here for 10 years and not grow and learn. So then I took over a martial arts school. This is real truth. I've done martial arts for 30 years. The owner was my instructor when I was a kid. He knew I could do systems and processes, and he didn't know how to do those. And he knew I could teach and lead and inspire. So he brought me in and I systemized his business. And really, that's when I fell in love with marketing and sales, because in order for us to grow, we had to have systems, of teaching and training our instructors and our staff, and having a process, which we didn't have until I came in. And then I also fell in love with sales and marketing because that's where the growth was. And that was what I found so fun, is kind of stitching together the growth, outside with marketing and sales inside, and then, seeing these kids grow up. They were at about $500,000. The owner was making 60,000 a year, working 60 hours a week. In a few short years, we went to $1 million in revenue. We were one of the first martial arts schools in the country. About three all kind of hit this mark at the same time, to hit $1 million out of a single location, which is pretty unbelievable when you think about a karate school being $1 million business. And the owner pulled me aside, and he was now making 200,000 working 6 hours a week. And he goes to me, "If you do this for 10 more years, you can take over this school." And I said, "Nope, that's not going to work for me." So I went to a digital marketing agency. They needed help with sales and marketing, and that's where my love had started to be. And I was their first sales and marketing hire, and they were stuck at 3 million. 3 million for 3 years. And I started to kind of figure out how to throw all this ideas of process and marketing and sales and business and, understanding customers together. And we went 4 million, 5 million, and 7 million in the next three. So we over doubled in less than 3 years. And that's when I realized I had something really special and unique to give. So I wrote it all down. I built a process for it. And then I jumped out in the ocean and said, I'm going to go do this for other small businesses because it's what I love to do. And now I have a system and a model that I bring into businesses that is already proven to help grow. And I not only teach it to them, that's why I have coaching in my business name, but I also get my hands dirty and do the work because most small businesses can't afford for a really smart consultant to come in and just say all the things. They need people to do things. So that's what we do.
Mhm.
Comes back to just not being afraid to get my hands dirty and figure out, how to build things with duct tape and popsicle sticks. I know it's a long story, but I think it kind of really sets the stage of what I do and why I do it.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It does. So, what kind of people do you work with? What kind of businesses? Are they solopreneurs? Are they just starting out? What are their revenue ranges?
My clients have ranged upwards of 30 million to startup. What I would say my sweet spot is where this formula just seems to be the fastest to hit the ground running is businesses between 3 and 10 million. They're B2B, so they sell to other businesses. They have like a high ticket price, multiple $1,000 ticket price for their product or service, and monthly recurring revenue. So I work with, a really good example is I have two people businesses that are my clients right now. One is a recruiter, the other does fractional services. Like I'm a fractional part-time service. They do fractional service as well, just not chief revenue officer. High ticket, monthly recurring, high trust sale. Not an easy sales process, but it requires marketing and sales at the same time. So that's what I do.
Mm-hmm. And do you do it yourself or do you have a team helping you?
Yeah, I'm a team of five. I've kind of built an interesting model because we have to execute is part of my job too, right? I'm not an executive sitting in an ivory tower just, doing cool strategy decks. Somebody's got to change the website. Somebody's got to write the blogs. And so with the model, I've made it really easy to delegate that. So I kind of bolt on to wherever the business is. And I have a couple of fractional chief revenue officers that are on my team that will come in depending on their skill set. Like one of them, for example, that I'm thinking of, he was at a $30 million SaaS company and decided that he kind of loved small business and wanted to do something a little different. And so he's exceptional at customer journeys. And so if I see a really complex customer journey, kind of where a client is potentially stuck, I usually will tap him in. But yeah, we have a small team, and so we have support resources for our fractional chief revenue officers that can execute our playbook because the playbook is the playbook. And so that makes us really fast to get results, and I can bring in the right resources who either have experience in that field or near or adjacent.
Mm-hmm. In your profile, you mentioned you managed in some cases to 10x the revenues of companies. What are the specific, or if you can share some specific, maybe not the entire process, but steps that you took to achieve this?
Yes. Obviously the 10x is easy when they're smaller. So I'll
Yeah.
just caveat that. But specifically with profit, like I think the most common I've done is 10x profit. 10x business growth on top line I've done in very small businesses going from, single or tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. But my flavor, I tend to focus on profit. So it's really easy to drive 10x profit growth. In these small monthly recurring revenue businesses, it's a very simple equation. And I try and teach everything in our process and our playbook is like it's a math formula. I call it the next level formula. If you can't figure it out, I kind of like the science thing. But you have a front door of your business and you have a back door of your business, especially in monthly recurring revenue. You need more people coming in the front door than leaving the back door and quitting. And one of the simplest ways to increase the bottom line on a small business that has a monthly recurring revenue product is to extend your average monthly duration of client, like in your system, by a month. In general, your overhead costs in those businesses are fairly flat to service that client. And so if you can take 10 clients that you have or 50 clients, whatever your size is, and add 1 month to the end, all of that falls to the bottom line. And what I have found is with tighter marketing and sales processes, the communication of the value is done more succinctly and more effectively. It also then influences operations to be more clear on what, the deliverable they're offering each month is. So it aligns from marketing to sales to operations. And when those three all working together, the value the client receives it feels higher really quickly. And so you see that extension of retention. And so that's a pretty simple way. The other way is just the more clients, more money, more profit, right? And what I usually come to find, and this is one of the things I bring in, I call it the revenue cascade. And we can get your listeners a copy of a way to do this. I've written it all out. It's really simple, step by step. It's visual. It's like an ebook. The revenue cascade, what it does is it, instead of guessing where to get new business or where you're limited in your new business stream, you can isolate which stage you're stuck on and then assign tactics and strategies to grow it. So in the case of, okay, we've maxed out retention, we need, net new revenue. Okay, well, you're getting 3 deals, signed a month, whatever that, arbitrarily 3 deals. Okay, how many did you close? Or how many did you present to? Well, 6. Okay, 50% is pretty good. I'm not going to probably be able to optimize 50%. How many did you have a discovery call with or learn more meeting or whatever you call it? Well, it took 40 of those to get 6 presentations. I know it seems kind of obvious to think like this, but I can't tell you how many businesses do not have a single sheet of paper or a single Excel spreadsheet or a single CRM view that shows the fall off rate between each of their sales and marketing processes. Well, it's taking you 40 discovery calls to get 6 presentations. Something is wrong here. And if we can just optimize there, we're going to see more come through to the bottom line. So that doesn't cost any dollars in marketing. That doesn't cost any dollars in sales. You just do things better. And you'll get more business, which is crazy. And that's more profit.
Yeah. Talking about cost now, the revenue growth is usually associated with a lot of marketing costs. How does it look like in the case of startups that don't have all the processes, that don't have anything to optimize?
You can always choose work. Like usually labor when it's a startup is the cheapest. So yeah, you have to work. And I think it's understanding what the right work is, right? It isn't a crazy marketing, Super Bowl commercial, right? It's what is the lowest hanging fruit? Whose audiences can you steal from? What relationships can you nurture and explore? That, like the grunt, I would call that grunt labor, but that is where the most valuable fruit is when you are looking at a pure ROI. Who can I talk to today? Where can I get a list? Who can I network with? I mean, if you're in 4 networking events a week and you have a very clean pitch of what you're doing and what problem you're solving, and you're doing it in a non-aggressive sales way, in a help first way, you will see your pipeline increase and you don't have to spend really more than a few bucks on a couple meetings and a couple cups of coffee. So that's usually the advice I give is it's time to ground and pound a little bit. You can't be afraid of a couple not cold, but intentional reach outs.
Can you share a story of a success that you've achieved? Something?
Sure. I'll talk about this is a good one. So I took on a client. They were in the MSP, managed service provider space. They did IT and cybersecurity. They were trying to grow their revenue, and their sales team was kind of stuck. And one of the things I bring in is a metric called ROAS. It's a bit cheeky, it's a bit on the nose, but it is pretty funny. It's not your traditional ROAS. So any marketer out there, I'm not trying to offend or differentiate. ROAS is return on all ad spend, like what you're spending in Facebook or Google or LinkedIn, whatever. ROAS is return on all sales and marketing spend. So we think about in revenue system, because I believe in a revenue system versus a sales and a marketing system as 2 separate entities. They're one system. All dollars spent on sales and marketing has to be generate a return. And we're not going to fight over which dollar brought which dollar in, because that is a huge waste of resources until you're at 50 million in scale. So let's just think of them as one bucket, because at the end of the day, it's all one bucket of the whole department for a small business anyway. And this business, when I came in, I did a quick evaluation. They were at a 1.17 return on all sales and marketing spend. So they were spending about $500,000 in the first half of the year. So about $1 million a year on their sales team. They had no marketing. I mean, they had pennies in marketing, and their sales team had generated $1 million in revenue. This is a $9 million business, $8 million business. And at that ratio, you'll never be profitable because you are now trading $1 for $1.17 of revenue. That means you have to pay your entire delivery model on 17 cents and try and have anything left over. It's never going to happen. So that's where I started. In about 6 months, we were able to jump that to almost, we were averaging 3.82 over a 90-day period with peaks of 6 or 7 in return on all sales and marketing. So what I did is we just reoriented the sales team, sold a simpler version of the product, tweaked compensation, and then started basic marketing. And I know that seems simple, but like there's a lot of lifting to do that. And suddenly now there was profitability, right? The business became profitable when it was flat. So that was a pretty big win. That was pretty fun to do.
You have here something called revenue zipper. What is that?
The revenue zipper. Yeah, I like IP, intellectual property, and I'm doing something that I think feels really different. So I've coined some terms for this. So most small businesses try to think about getting new sales and spending on marketing to get it. And the problem is, if those two are not thinking and acting in alignment, it becomes a nightmare. And at the end of the day, usually what happens is you're not having a really good dialogue between these two, and they kind of finger point at each other. So what I said is, really, there are things that look like sales that are really marketing. There are things that look like marketing that also are sales. And if we go with this idea that marketing is one-to-many sales and sales is one-to-one marketing, it's revenue. And so I call the revenue zipper is when we think about all the sales things we need to do, which, organic social of the CEO, that is kind of marketing, or is it sales? Having the CEO reach out and connect with people, is that marketing or sales? I don't know. I would see it's both. And so what I said is, okay, if we can do LinkedIn lead gen or outreach, and is that sales or is that marketing? And so instead of fighting that battle, I just said, let's zip these pieces together. So it's, one outbound or one up funnel reach. That is both marketing and sales. I call it revenue. We'll have one revenue system and one revenue process versus a marketing process and a sales process. So I zip marketing and sales together instead of separate them into silos. So I call that the revenue zipper. I do attribution all through. Yeah, that's an attribution layers over top of that, because every CEO I've ever met goes, if I knew it was making money, I'd spend more. And so how do you know how it's making money? That fits into the revenue zipper. And the CRO zips it all together.
I see. Before we started recording, I talked about some of my guests, my recent guests, and a lot of them talk about AI. How do you see the entry of AI into your clients' businesses? Are they adopting it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, AI for me is a thought partner, and it is a execution resource. So, and it's cheap, right? What's my chat GPT subscription is $20 a month to add another brain. Like, what's the most expensive thing in service businesses? It's people. Well, ChatGPT is kind of like a pretty good brain. It's like having another person. So I treat it as a thought partner, meaning I have, I actually communicate with it, and then I teach it my system is how I do it. And then I teach it my clients, and then I can ask for specific things as outputs, and I use it as a rough draft, or I use it to do heavy lifting of data and idea aggregation. So what I'll do, I just did this for one of my clients, had a really good mind share meeting with the leadership team about a potential new kind of assessment and thing they were trying to build as a marketing and a sales tool, right? A revenue tool. But it was also having impacts on customer service and customer delivery. And so we got feedback from key leaders throughout the entire business. And so there were documents and spreadsheets and all kinds of ideas all spread out. And so I just fed it all to my model that I built for this client, and then gave it other ones to compare, and then asked it to, in that brand voice for that client, to produce an assessment and then a scoring system. And out came something that was 80% of the way. and it took me minutes instead of hours. So I would say I don't expect my clients to adopt it very much because it's hard for them to, because they don't have time. They're hiring me because I'm a speed demon. I go a million miles an hour and build stuff fast, but I use it and I teach my team to use it because, again, it's a thought partner. It's a
Ah,
double check.
yeah, what I meant is more like in on the marketing side, like CRM systems, including AI, if they use something like that to bring people in their funnels, or you're not aware.
No, no, I think we're talking about similar things, just different ways of leveraging
Okay.
AI.
Mm-hmm.
Chat, and I would call it the faux human experience. I would totally see like some of my clients are using it, but it depends on your size and your traffic if you're going to start to do that stuff. How big is your CRM? How many contacts do you have? And most small business, B2B businesses, they're sub 1,000. AI is, going to be great for what? The 8 people who visit your site? Nah, I think there's easier ways to leverage AI than that because most of my clients need a lot of building versus a lot of like one-off things. So I
Mm-hmm.
tend to use AI as a heavy lifter.
Yeah.
Just different ways of slicing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. And so how much do people invest in your services?
Gotta ask that question. So I look at, when I went to market and I was deciding, what the right price point for my business was going to be, it's the same process I use for my clients too. Just understand what's out there, right? Reverse engineer the margin you need to get, and then, not undervalue yourself, right? So, high-end fractional chief marketing officers run between 10 and 15,000 a month. That's pretty average industry rate.
Yeah.
Sales executives, and there's a million of these fractional sales executives, and there's even more sales trainers and sales coaches. There's a ton of those. Their projects are 10 to 20,000. And I said, well, I can do both. I can do both, not at a 25 or $30 million, running level, because it doesn't necessarily make sense to have just one of me fractional at that size. I said, I'm going to go in at half of those together. So I come in at about 10 to 12,000 per month, depending on the engagement. Um, and I'm in there about a day and a half a week, lifting and moving. And, depending on what team comes in, I just kind of bolt around. So there are teams, I have one client that has 4 salespeople. So I kind of took on the role of marketing manager, sales manager, and CRO. And then I've scaffolded out. So I just split them into industry specific teams, hired replacements, hired a sales manager because the revenue was growing, pulled myself out, working on a marketing manager to pull myself out of there,
Mm-hmm.
all while profitably raising their revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So
So basically your fee is relatively flat, irrespective of the size of the company you're working with.
correct. Again, I know where my sweet spot is, and I know that they generally can afford that because what they're usually doing is hiring a salesperson, trying to give them either one of two paths always show up, right? It's your first sales hire, so you try and make them really commission heavy and make them ground out on the ground and pound, and they're trying to sell a high ticket item, which means the CEO has to get involved, and no CEO wants to talk to a business development representative that's making 60K pure commission. They just ignore those folks. Like those calls don't get answered. So I get called in there. And so I know that price they had budgeted was about 100,000 for the year. The other time I get called in is when there's a VP of sales and marketing who's just a pretty good salesperson, doesn't know how to build a sales team or a marketing organization. So I come in there, usually they're paying that person already 100,000 at least, and they are somewhat profitable, but they've tried to bring on a sales team and it didn't go well. They brought on a more marketing coordinator and it didn't go well, or they've spent, $10,000 on a paid advertising campaign and it didn't go well. So I kind of know that I can fit in there and then free up enough cash to then go invest strategically versus just guessing.
Mm-hmm. I see. You mentioned you had a free resource. What is it,
Yep.
and what is the way to
It,
access it?
Yeah, it's called the revenue cascade. And what it is it's a way to visualize your marketing funnel and your sales pipeline in one view, using very simple math. So I've got an ebook on it, and then I can also share a simple Excel sheet or Google sheet, because most of the businesses I work on, maybe they have a CRM, but they aren't using even a tenth of it. And at the end of the day, they're not sophisticated enough. They don't have a systems person who actually can build these views. So if we just work in sheets, we can usually get close enough. And that's what I believe in, is let's get close and then iterate. So I'm happy to share those. My only request is we connect on LinkedIn and you send me a message and I will be happy to give it to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kyle. Anything else that you'd like to add?
No, just really grateful for the time, Zarina. Hopefully this was helpful to your audience. And if anybody has any questions, just holler at me.
Sure. I'll put the link below in the description for anybody who wants to download the assessment. The what was it called
Revenue
again?
Cascade.
Sorry. The revenue cascade. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Kyle. It was a pleasure. Thank you for listening to Grow and Learn. We hope that you found our podcast informative, engaging, and inspiring. Our mission is to help you keep growing and learning, and we hope that our conversations and insights have provided you with practical advice and useful perspectives. If you're looking for personalized support and guidance to help you achieve your personal or professional growth objectives, I offer a range of services to help. As a trusted management partner and mentor, I work with businesses in the process of transformation, looking for new streams of business, as well as M&A. With an extensive professional network of experts and mentors, I can bring on board the right person or team based on the specific needs of the company I'm working with. To learn more about the services I offer and how I can help you achieve your goals, visit my website at growandlearn.org. You can also reach out to me via email or social media. I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this episode of Grow and Learn, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and it helps us to continue to create content that is relevant and valuable to our listeners. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights and perspectives with you in the future.